Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again. We're going to return to the state of Colorado and return to a brewery that I haven't reviewed anything from in quite a wee while actually, but it's a brewery that I've always been pretty impressed with, and I don't know why it's been so long since I last reviewed a beer from these guys. I think it's been about 3 years now. But for this review we are going to return to Longmont, which is home to a good number of breweries now actually, but we're having a taste of another beer from Left-Hand Brewing Company. This one is the White Russian, which is a white stout coming in at 8.9% ABV, and it's got coffee and vanilla added to the brew. If memory serves me correctly, this is only the second white stout that I've reviewed for you here on the channel, and it's a really interesting style actually, but the main reason that I picked up this one was because the White Russian is one of my favourite cocktails, mainly along with mojitos. I think actually those are probably my two favourite cocktails, and it's a white stout. I haven't reviewed too many of those, and it's a brewery that I haven't had anything from in ages, so really I just thought why not. So this beer was released on the 18th of October 2019 through the Tillräcklig assortment, formerly the Små Partiers and Systembolaget here in Sweden, and hopefully it's another good beer. Big shout out to my friend Tabor Crumrine over in Boulder in Colorado, which isn't too far away from this. I know he quite likes to watch my Colorado videos, and I'm sure you'll see me do a couple of videos with him. I do want to go out to Colorado and do a few breweries and things like that, and he was saying that he would help me out with that. You'll probably see him in some videos over here in Sweden at some point as well actually, so keep an eye out for those. I do quite like doing these out and about videos every so often now as well, and I think you guys quite enjoy them as well. But very much looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Left-Handed Brewing as well. No doubt I will add some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there too. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Left-Hand Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Left-Hand Brewing are based in Longmont in Colorado, and they were founded by Dick Doer and Eric Wallace. So Dick had begun home brewing in 1990, and by 1993 he'd resolved to start up a brewery with his university friend Eric, who had travelled the world quite extensively and tried a lot of different interesting beers. But they made some initial batches together, and these impressed their neighbours and friends, and this was what really prompted them to go on and actually start the brewery. So in 1993 they incorporated the company as Indian Peaks Brewing Company, and this name came from the Indian Peaks Mountains nearby. The first brewery was in a former meat packaging plant next to the St. Vrain River in downtown Longmont, but at a very early stage there was a conflict of interest surrounding the name Indian Peaks because another brewery was using this as the name of one of their beers. But the brewery thus changed their name to Left Hand in honour of Chief Niwot, whose tribe used to wander the area, and Niwot comes from the Arapaho language, and it just basically means, left hand, hence the name Left-Hand Brewing that they have now. But in 1994 the brewery officially opened its doors, and the first beer that they produced was the Sawtooth Ale, and over the next few years they expanded their inventory and added more personnel to their team as well. They merged with Tabernash Brewery from Denver in 1998, and at this point they started producing bottled beers. But they also started their own distribution company, which was called Indian Peaks Distribution. However, during the next 10-year period this was sold, and the Tabernash beer brand was kind of phased out as well. But in more recent years the brewery, they've been expanding massively to keep up with demand for their beers. They've added many new tanks and fermenters and things like that, as well as quite a large bottling line as well. In 2011 they were also the first brewery to bottle nitro beers as well, and this was with their Nitro Milk Stout, which is one that I really need to review for you on the channel at some point too. But nowadays they have their tap room at the brewery as well. They offer tours too, and as of 2016, which was the latest figure I could find for the brewery, they produce around 12.5 million litres of beer per year, and they've produced just short of 600 different types of beer as of October October 2019 when I'm filming this review for you. So yeah, these guys were one of the first Colorado breweries that I came across. I mean, New Belgium, you never really got those guys back in Scotland, but you got these guys, you got Oscar Blues, and I think we got Ska Brewing as well from what I remember too. But you know, Colorado, to us in Europe, Colorado is known as being one of the kind of premier craft beer states over in America, along with the likes of California, probably California and Colorado, and I guess to some degree Michigan as well. Those were the three states that we really started to get a lot of craft beer from when it came to American things, back in the day, back in 2012, 2013 and things like that. So yeah, interesting times. But yeah, as always, that's all you really need to know about the brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like this as well, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And if you want to see all the different beers that they do, I would recommend that you check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages for this brewery too. But yeah, this is my fourth review, I think, from these guys, maybe fourth, maybe fifth. But I've always enjoyed the beers that I've had from them. I need to see if I can review an IPA from them at some point, because I think all of the beers that I've reviewed from these guys before have been dark things. But the problem we have over here in Europe, of course, is actually getting a hold of some of these beers quite fresh actually, but maybe that's something I can sort out with Tabor at some point. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So yeah, as you can see, this beer has it's got some really nice artwork on it. There you can see the Swedish import sticker on it there. But yeah, there you can see at the left hand brewing symbol there. I'm not sure if the red hand is supposed to kind of signify the Native Americans, if you like, because they always, I know there's the football team, the Washington Redskins, and they do have a bit of a red tinge to their skin, so I'm not sure if that is why the left hand on this one is red actually. I would assume that it probably is. But yeah, it's nicely presented beer, this one. I don't know what the thing with the bowling pin is as well actually, the White Russians. I'm really not sure about that, but yeah, White Russian, like I mentioned, it's based on the cocktail. It says on the side here, this is a super smooth and decadent white stout with coffee and vanilla added to the brew as well. It says the ingredients are Rocky Mountain water, malted barley, flaked oats, lactose, coffee, hops, vanilla and yeast. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is 1 American pint. It certainly looks like it. It says 13.65 fluid ounces, whatever that is, but I think when I put it next to another American can, it is most likely to be 473 millilitres, which is 1 US pint, and it's quite interesting actually they'd sell an 8.9% beer in an American pint like that, especially when it's a stout. I've seen them do it with IPAs right enough, but stouts, I've seen it once or twice in fairness. But yeah, let's get, that's a bit unusual. Then again, this is one of the first, I think the first nitro beer that I've come across, and that's maybe why it's a little bit different, but did get a bit of a fright there. That was quite unusual. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we will get on with the taste. And I'm really curious to see how this one turns out. Look at that. For a stout, that is, to see a stout that kind of colour is quite weird actually. But from what I know of nitro beers, they're very, very, very smooth. So that's kind of quite interesting. Just look at that. You can see the carbonation just morphing up into the head there. That's really quite cool actually. I need to see about reviewing some more nitro beers for you on the channel. That's really unusual. But yeah, as you can see, this one's poured, it almost looks like an IPA, to be honest with you. It's a lovely kind of clear amber colour there, and I guess it's probably the absence of black malt and chocolate malt and things like that that is making it this thing. But you can see the head on that. You can pretty much, there's hardly any bubbles to that. The head's almost like ice cream or something. It's absolutely just solid. There's not even any bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there. You can see 1 or 2 teeny little bubbles of carbonation. But that's really unusual. This beer is absolutely crystal clear as well. It's really kind of unusual to have a stout like that, but we know that that's what white stouts are actually like. But that's a beautiful looking beer actually, so kudos to Left Hand Brewing for this one. I think they've done a really quite nice job here. So yeah, not unusual for a white stout that, but I'm just surprised at how clear it is and just how solid the head is there as well. I've got a feeling that the nitro beers, I've tried 1 or 2 of them before, And from what I remember, the feel that you get from these beers is very similar to what you would get from the, you know, the English ales, the cask beers. So I'm curious just to see how that kind of goes over into this beer, but we'll comment on that a little bit as we taste it. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah, I mean, you can smell the nice kind of coffee notes coming out of this one. But I think the aroma, I'm not sure whether this is because it's nitro or not, but the aroma in this beer is really a lot less pronounced compared to some of the other ones that you're going to come across from Left Hand Brewing from memory. You can definitely smell a nice little bit of the vanilla coming out of the beer, and also some of the coffee notes. It's a very smooth, slightly earthy coffee, maybe with a little touch of a floral character to it. As I've always said, coffee beans can add a ridiculous amount of complexity to beers. But with this one, the aroma is very, very subtle. You can maybe pick out, there's a little touch of hoppy quality to this one. You can pick up a little bit of the earthiness, a little bit of a kind of grassy note to the beer as well. But mainly the floral character you get out of this beer is I think it's mainly from the coffee, to be honest with you. But some sweet vanilla, as I mentioned. Maybe a little bit of a slightly biscuity, sweet kind of McVitie's digestive kind of note in there. Or cookies, as the Americans would call it. We should say that, since this is an American beer. And it will be Americans that are watching the channel mainly. But yeah, really smooth, slightly sweet. Nice, the way the vanilla kind of merges into everything else in this beer is really quite interesting. But yeah, I really like how that goes together in this beer. This is really quite nicely done, actually. So thumbs up to Left Hand Brewing for this one. In terms of fruitiness, there's not much going on in this beer. There's maybe a little bit of a slightly figgy note or something like that. Very light, sort of candied red fruit, candied strawberry or something. But I think maybe even a little bit of blackberry, something like that. But yeah, very, very light fruity qualities of this one. Not overly notable, if that makes sense. You have to really search for those. So yeah, a really interesting aroma from this beer, but I'm very curious to see how it turns out. Actually, when it was called the White Russian, I would have expected it to be just a little bit more milky, but in fairness, you do get quite a bit of... you do perhaps get a little bit of that from the vanilla elements pushing their way out of this beer. But yeah, let's have a look at this beer then and see how we get on. This one is the White Russian, an 8.9% white stout with coffee and vanilla from Left Hand Brewing in Longmont in Colorado over in America. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. That's really nice, actually. It is, you know, when I was talking about these English kind of cask beers, the feel that you get off of this one is really kind of quite interesting, actually. And it's strange that when you get the nitro beers like this, I do want, you know, a lot of the English traditional breweries, in my experience, they can be very hesitant to develop, you know, to take up new technology and things like that. Generally, the UK as a country is they're very difficult to modernise, to be honest. That's one of my big frustrations with it. Scotland a little bit less so, right enough. But you know, it's interesting that with the mouthfeel that you can get from this beer. To me, it really surprises me that some of the English breweries, like these traditional English breweries, aren't experimenting with this, because it really gives you a very, very similar mouthfeel to what you would get from the cask ales in the pub. It's interesting that I really don't understand that now that I've kind of encountered this. But yeah, that's a really, really quite nice beer, this one. It's a bit dangerous as well that it's 8.9%, you know, that's ridiculously drinkable for an 8.9% beer. But quite often, I found this quite a lot recently with different American beers, the drinkability in some of these high alcohol ones is crazy. And when you think about in America that it's very difficult in a lot of places in the States to, you know, just walk there and then walk home. Plus the fact there's all these laws about that you're not allowed to be a bit drunk in the street and things like that. You know, I remember being at Toppling Goliath in Iowa, which was literally in the middle of nowhere. And you know, people will go to the brewery, drink about 3 or 4 of you know, 3 or 4 double IPAs, and then drive home. It's insane. And and even then, those beers are very, very drinkable. Like this one. That's one of the things I find really, really weird about craft beer in America, is that, you know, you have to drive to these breweries. You'll get absolutely smashed, and then you'll drive home. So yeah, it's kind of funny actually. But this is another ridiculously easily drinkable beer. This. So yeah, let's try and break the flavour of this one down a little bit then. So straight away with this beer, you're going to feel that nice, you can really feel a bit of a bready quality to this one. It really has that very smooth, almost oaty, creamy quality there. I don't know if it will have oats in it actually, I don't know if it says on the side. You know, it does say it's got oats on the side here, flaked oats and lactose, and I was thinking as well lactose would be the other one. So that completely makes sense, to be honest with you. So it really is the kind of the oaty sort of creaminess. It's a very like sort of light bready oaty kind of creaminess that just forms the base of the beer here, and that, you know, the vanilla flavours kind of really mix in with that. The coffee in this beer is very, 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 very subtle, to be honest with you, and it's really almost more like a kind of, it comes across as almost more like an undertone rather than taking a real sort of forefront in the beer. But when you consider what the White Russian cocktail actually is, you know, it's very similar to that, and you know, in fairness, that's what you would expect. And when you've got a brewery like Left Hand in there who do have a bit of a pedigree about them, you know, it's not surprising, to be honest with you. This beer gets a thumbs up from me, no doubts. This is very, very nice. I don't know if I could get used to that nitro mouthfeel though. I think maybe I need to try a few more beers and be a bit more open-minded to it. But I think perhaps I might be a little bit more of a kind of traditionalist, if you like. I'm not sure how much I like the nitro mouthfeel. But yeah, let me know your own thoughts on that in the comments section below. Nitro's maybe something that will grow on me a little bit. Let me know a few other nitro beers that I should have a look at, and you know, develop my taste, if you like, for it. But yeah, on top of that nice oaty vanilla type bed there, you will feel the middle of your palate dry out a little bit, and that's where you get some of the coffee kind of flavours of this one. And it's a very smooth, very slightly earthy coffee. I think there's a little bit of a florally citrus kind of thing in there, but it's quite minimal. It's quite hard to actually pick up what the different complexities of the coffee are in this beer, because it feels like it really is very blended in. Maybe in the very centre of your palate too, you get a little touch of a biscuity kind of cookie sort of thing out of this beer, and that'll just be covering up a little bit of the alcohol. Alcohol flavours really always give you a bit of a kind of brown sugary biscuity type thing actually, but you can really feel that in the middle of the beer here. There might be a little touch of a slightly, if you go to the front corners of your palate and then move in, you might get a little bit of a slightly woody undertone to this beer. But really, to me, this one comes across as being very, very straight up rather than anything else. But I really like how this goes together. I need to explore. You don't see too many of these white stouts around. I maybe need to do a bit of research and see what other ones I can find, because it's a style that I do quite like, but like I said, you just don't come across all that many of them. So again, do recommend me some other ones in the comment section below, and I'll see what I can get hold of. But it's a really nice beer, this actually. It is very kind of similar to a cocktail. You know, for me, reviewing this beer in Sweden, this might be something that you would expect from like Dugas Brewery or Omnipol, one of these breweries that are quite good at putting adjuncts and things into beers. It's very well done, this one, and really quite nice and smooth and flavourful and stuff. So yeah. But yeah, I definitely like how that goes together. I do, in fairness, when you drink this a little bit more, the coffee does become a little bit more prominent, and I'm finding that it's leaning a little bit more towards that kind of floral side of things, but it does have a good little bit of a earthy roast to it. Of course, when it comes to adding coffee to beers, it's all about the height above sea level that the coffee's growing. It's, you know, the higher altitude that you grow the coffee at, the more sort of fruity and floral and all these kind of things it becomes. I'm not even a great fan of coffee drinking, but you know, that whole stuff with coffee is a craft in itself. But you really can, the more you drink of this beer, you can feel the coffee gradually becoming more floral, I think. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, that smooths out a little bit. You get a little touch of a floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and then behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. And the fruit is actually, it's quite hard to place exactly what's going on in this beer in that sense. Yeah, I mean, it's very much like a sort of, it's a little bit figgy, it's a little bit blackcurranty, blackberry-ish, probably more blackcurranty rather than anything else. I'd say figs and blackcurrants, but it's a very light sort of candied note, maybe even a little bit of a kind of candied strawberry in there. There's not a lot in the way of a fruity note to this one, but I would guess, if I was guessing what hops were put in this one, it's not strong enough to be Williamette, I don't think. Usually Williamette can give you these nice red fruity flavours. I don't know if they would use Bramling's Cross from England, to be honest, because it's the profile of this, the fruity side of the beer is quite similar to that actually, so I would keep that in mind about this beer. But I would say it could be Summit is the other one that comes to mind. I know that they like to use, the Summit can be a very good one with the likes of black IPAs and stuff, and it's the hop profile of this beer I think is very similar to you know, an Imperial Stout or a black IPA or something like this. So I would reckon Williamette would be a possibility, but I'm pretty sure it's not that. It could also be like Summit or Bramling's Cross or something like that. I'd be very curious to know about that. But a really quite interesting beer, this one. And definitely one that you need to try for yourself. It's very, very similar to the cocktails actually. The thing that probably sets it apart, I think, is the prominence of the coffee notes. And that said, it's not even all that prominent in the beer, but some of the fruity notes as well I don't think you're going to get in a normal sort of White Russian too. But yeah, it's interesting that. Have a go at this beer for yourself and just see what you think. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I think I've emptied this can. I was going to say I've drunk quite a bit of this. Ridiculously easy to drink, but in terms of the mouthfeel, I would describe this beer as being at the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. It does feel a little bit heavier because it's nitro treated rather than you know, regular sort of CO2, but yeah, very, very smooth this one. It's very much like an English cask ale to me, to be honest. So that maybe makes it feel a little bit heavier than it actually is. I'm not sure how I feel about the nitro yet. That's something I need to experiment with a little bit. But overall, I would say that this beer has a really good balance between being smooth and sweet on one hand, and also a little bit kind of bitter on the other side, a little bit of that coffee bitterness there, but mainly it's a sweet and smooth beer, this, like the cocktail is. In terms of the malt base, really smooth and sweet generally. The adjunct, the coffee adjunct, as I say, dries out in the middle of your palate and gives you a little bit of that bitterness later on. A little bit of a hoppy quality. I think we're only talking like 20 IBUs or something in this. I'd be surprised if it's any more than that. And there's also a little bit of a kind of juicy, fruity note to the beer as well. But overall, a really, really nice beer, this. I would recommend you have a go at it, and it's cool to return to Left Hand Brewing with something like this, something that's a little bit more unusual. But yeah, let's just leave it at that. The White Russian, a white stout with coffee and vanilla at 8.9% from Left Hand Brewing in Longmont in Colorado. A really cool beer, this one, and I'm glad I was able to review it. So yeah, definitely want to review more white stouts over the next little while. So let me know more about those and give me some recommendations in the description below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Left Hand Brewing as well. I need to try their Nitro Milk Stout, I think, at some point too. But a really interesting brewery, this one, and I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the future. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. As I said, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Left Hand Brewing. Let me know some nitro and some white stouts that I should try as well. And yeah, I'll definitely return to these guys in the future. So until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Make sure you check out this beer. Slàinte, skål, cheers. The White Russian from Left Hand Brewing in Longmont, Colorado. Cheers.